we saw how we could make the appearance of our website better with the font names that we give, the default font names that we have. But it doesn't end there. Now, when it comes to font or any resource, we have a huge list of it. Now, we could just go for external resources. Now we have something called Google Fonts. Now, like Google Fonts, there are many other organizations that share their fonts for free or for some commercials. Now, we'll see how we could use Google's fonts. Now, every external party or the third party that shares their resources, they will always give documentation on how to use it. Now, we'll look at that. I will see where Google has mentioned it. Or I could even search the Google how to use Google fonts or how to include Google fonts. Okay, it's there in Google. Okay, so this is what you do. So you can add a style sheet. Now, it is not limited to a single style sheet. You could add as many style sheet as you want. So now what it does is it says this is a style sheet and its URL is https fonts Google APIs CSS family equal to Tangerine. So Tangerine is the font family called now this font family. Now let's see how we could use this. I've already mentioned this Tangerine here. Now this div class, let me change I'll just remove the font family, or how shall we do it? We can simply say Tangerine. Let's see if this works. All I did now was include the style sheet, and at the font family I said Tangerine. See, it has changed. Let me just increase the font size a bit to EM. So this is the font family. See, it was very simple, right? All we did was just include in the style sheet, and then we mentioned the font family that Google says, the Tangerine font family. Now you could make as many changes you would want with this text like you did with your text. So this font family is applied from Google. Now you might be thinking this Tangerine might not be in my Mac OS or in my browser. How is it working? Now what happens is when you do this, when you include this, right? When you include this, this is the location where the Tangerine font is. Now, the moment you load this site, this font is downloaded to your browser. So that's how this font is applied. Now, you could also use multiple fonts. Now, this Tangerine is one font. Let's look at other fonts too. Okay. There's something called Babylonica. So we just spell that again, Babylonica. Okay. So I could use the Babylonica. Do we have an anchor tag? Yeah, we have an anchor tag. I could use a Babylonica here. font is very small. I mean, the text is very small. So I'll give this 3 em size. See, the font is applied. Now you have these two fonts. I was able to take two fonts, right? Two fonts from Google Fonts, and I was able to apply these two fonts here in the anchor tag and the div tag. Now let's say for some reason this page loads, but during this call to Google API, your network breaks down, or somewhere in your internet service provider his line breaks down, or say even in the Google this service is not available, or it's stuck, or there's a bottleneck, or the system crashes, or Google itself is not available. In that case, what happens? We'll see what happens by just disabling this. I'm just disable this by commenting it out. Now in that case, this is what you see. Because this is not available, it tries to apply the Tangerine and Babylonica, and the font is not applied because Google API is not available, the network broke down. That is why you need a fallback system to say that if this is not available, use something else. So now it looked for Tangerine. Tangerine was not there, so it just opted for cursive. Whereas in this case, test, I didn't give a fallback system. So all we had was the default browser's font, which I believe is Times New Roman. We'll see. What is Chrome's default font? Okay, for Chrome is Times New Roman. For Mac OS, it's Times Roman. So the default, that's the default font. Now, when it comes to styling, you could also style Google's font as much as you want. I believe that is what even Google has mentioned here. So you could do, I mean, sizes, text shadow, you could apply all that. Now, there's something called effects here. Let's see what effects are. Effects. These are all font names. Okay, so this is what font effect is. Now, see this kind of font effects. We'll try something in our example. It's called shadow multiple. Let's see how this is applied. This is how it's applied. Now, class font effect is by default Google's prefix, and then use shadow multiple. Shadow multiple is a font name here. Let's try this out here in the H1. So there's a shadow applied. Could you see? There's a shadow applied. Now I noticed another effect called fire. Let me try that here. See, there's a cool font effect. Now, if you noticed, let me show this again. The font effect fire is typically applied on Tangerine, it seems. H1 class. So Tangerine and cursive is what we gave in div class. Let me apply the same font effect fire here. So you could apply two classes. This looks really scary. So you could apply two classes to any element, or even multiple classes, not just two, multiple classes. Now what happens is, when the reason I just gave this two classes is when I just give font effect fire, the font effect was the only thing that happened. Okay, so I gave the font effect fire to H1, but H1 doesn't has any style. I mean, it doesn't has Tangerine style. So effect fire pretty much just gives the fire effect, but it doesn't change the font name or anything. For that, you should have another class. So that is why I added this div class, because div class is where we say the font family is Tangerine. Now font effect fire is applied to this div, but Tangerine is not applied. So that is why I also gave the div class. Now Google fonts are actually a third party, and it doesn't limits you anywhere. It helps you a lot in making your website look better.